Firstly, if I can request all the guests to start walking in and taking the seats, and I'll also invite the panelists. Anshuman Magazine needs no introduction. He is the chairman and managing director of CB Richard Ellis in South Asia, but more importantly, he is one of the stalwarts of the industry.
Mr. Magazine, please come on stage.
We have Akshay Kumar, the CEO and the founder of Park Lane Advisors, again a doyen of the industry for a long time. Third, a dear friend of mine, Samir Nair. We've shared many panels, and here I have an opportunity to ask him. Managing Director and the Head of Real Estate in Asia for the Credit Suisse franchise. Mr. Sanjay Gupta, Managing Director of PNB Housing Finance. Always a pleasure to hear him. Naveen Raheja, President of Neredgo, as you all must be knowing, and a prominent and a leading developer of the Raheja Group in Delhi. Satish Phandse, President of Hybar Technologies, one of the sponsors for this event. And last but not the least, Rishima Kaur, the business head for Berger Paints, the most well-dressed lady in the room. So before we start, once again, can I request people standing near the door to just please take up your seats. My colleague here, Amish, and me are not Shah Rukh Khan or Saif. We are simply comparing here. So guys, I know we are not attractive enough to have you, but request you all to take seats soon.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Nipun. Let's move on for this action-packed discussion, or this panel discussion. We'll discuss everything. We'll basically discuss future of real estate. रियल एस्टेट बाजार का भारत के अंदर क्या फ्यूचर है, विल डिस्कस दैट. और सबसे मेरा क्वेश्चन अंशुमन मैगजीन साहब से है, चेयरमैन एंड मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर सीबी रिचर्ड. मिस्टर मैगजीन, मेजर प्रॉब्लम विद रियल एस्टेट डेवलपर्स आर, मुझे लगता है कि इस सवाल के लिए मुझे कुछ डांट भी पड़ेगी सब रियल एस्टेट डेवलपर्स से, क्रेडिबिलिटी ऑफ बिल्डर्स एंड स्पेशली प्रॉपर्टी डीलर्स एंड ओवरऑल इंडस्ट्री. द बेसिक इश्यूज आर लाइक timely delivery and quality issues. Do you think for the better future these things to be addressed?
Certainly. Hello. Certainly. The fact is quality has improved from before. See, developers also, everybody blames the developers. Of course, there are a lot of things one can blame the developers, but they are working in an environment which is not easy. Even for delivery of time, for developers, they have to go through a lot of clearances, bureaucracy, to clear their projects. Of course, liquidity is a problem. Some of the developers are not being able to get enough funding. But if you look at the glass half full, and if you compare for last 10 years, the quality of construction has improved significantly in India. There's no doubt about it. But the fact remains, yes, it has to, delivery has been a problem. If you look at average projects, residential projects which should finish in 3 years, they finish in 5 years. So there's a big scope for improvement on timing, and I hope as the competition increases, as the consumer becomes more aware, as there's more regulation, there would be improvement in that area also.
Do you think, Akshay, that in current scenario, this is high time to get a regulator into this? Because, and more importantly, role of regulator is very important in current scenario, the way things are going up. Akshay, yeah.
Well, I think the sector definitely needs some regulation. There's no question about it. How and who regulates, I think, is very key. Developers, while they should probably have some say, I think they should be kept away from the formulation of regulation. Also, however, long term, for the betterment of the industry, I think a regulator will make fair play happen, and therefore you will see more customer-centric things happen. And I think that Wild West syndrome, which perhaps the industry has suffered from in the past, it's lessened now for sure, but it's definitely suffered from in the past, will be controlled. So I don't think there's any question a regulator is needed.
Mr. Raheja, you want to add on this something?
Yeah, I want to add on particularly regulatory issue. We all admit that there's a lot of problem in the country because of a lot of unscrupulous activities going on, and developers or builders getting bad name because of certain people who indulge into wrong practices. Now, in the regulatory act which is coming, which is a draft regulatory bill which is there, I am in the committee with the Government of India, and there are so many things which are, although they are trying to rush it, but as I look at it, it is more of a half-cooked attempt which is going to happen. More important issues which are there, they are not being addressed. And to the personal perspective, I wanted to put it up is, you know, what is there in the country, the common man is cheated by the developers without having project with sanctions, without having even the land ownership titles. And the regulator here, the act which is going to come, which is now almost in the final shape, that again lacks, you know, it is addressing only 4,000 meters and above plot sizes. Now, if we look at it, 4,000 meters and above plot sizes by the developers, I have a serious concern, because the people who are actually being cheated are the lower strata of the society.
Okay.
And this is subject to manipulation also. Anybody who's to manipulate, he will create different companies in less than, say, 3,800, 3,800, 3,800. And again, they get a maneuverability of, you know, carving out colonies without getting any responsibility and without regulatory act covering them at all. So
Rahita
most
sahab,
important.
one thing I want to interrupt. आपको नहीं लगता कि जितने real estate participants are, they are afraid of regulator? Don't you think so?
Yes, because they are regulating the over-regulated also only.
Okay.
4,000 square meters and plus means the developers who fall in the category which have already got the recognition. So they, instead of regulating them who are already regulated, you should try to regulate the unauthorized activity, creation of slums, illegal slums, and that should also be part of the regulatory act. That is number one. Number two, which is most important, is we look at all Indian courts. You know, most of the cases which are languishing, whether in criminal courts or whether in civil courts, they all pertain to real estate, property cases, land disputes, and the regulator is only talking about penalizing the developers. They are not trying to put any responsibility upon the government agencies who delay on sanctions, and consequent to which the projects get delayed. So regulator ideally should be which makes it, you know, accountable. Every individual who is causing loss or causing problems for growth of the real estate industry and also for the bad delayed deliveries or whatever actions, those everybody should get covered into that. And let me tell you, including the press also, which releases ads without checking titles, without checking whether the plans have been cleared or whether there is a legally clear title, whether it is a marketable title.
Sanjay, you know, roti, kapda, makan is a theme which we've been hearing for a long time. RBI is trying to control inflation. And inflation obviously hurts roti, kapda, but it hurts makan the most. When the EMI of a person goes up from a 8% to a 12% interest rate, what's your prognosis over the next 12 months? And how do you see that, you know, impacting consumers? Do they need to dip into their pockets further? And you see that environment continuing? Because that's a very big factor, and either where the government wants to reduce inflation, it's actually increased inflation and even reduced affordability of homes even further.
You're correct. You know, when the input costs which are administered in our country get enhanced, obviously the inflation rates will go up. For example, the government enhanced the support price of food items by 15%. So food items were bound to, you know, go up.
Sure.
So similarly is with the loans, that if our raw material cost has gone up some 12 times in the last 18 months, how far can a lender absorb these increases, and it gets shifted on to the individual customer. Now, it's a phenomenon in our country that 98% of our portfolio, outstanding portfolio, is on adjustable rate mortgages. Hence, it gets transferred onto the individual customer. So coming to the individual customer, what happens is, when the rates go up, generally most of the Indian lenders are on term extension program. So the repayment term gets incrementally increased, keeping into nuance that there is not a negative amortization, that you are not capitalizing interest. The second thing is, in case where there is a negative amortization, the lenders come back to the individual customer and they have to revise the installment or the equated monthly installment. And the third option, and which I personally prescribed a lot in increasing interest rate scenario, is that the lender and the customer should always come together and address the situation. And it is possible that if the customer prepays a little bit of outstanding loan, then the EMI can remain constant and the repayment term will also remain as the original repayment term. Mind you, why I prefer the third option most is because in a term extension program, we might say that the EMI remains constant and the repayment term increases, but your effective cost of borrowing goes up.
Yeah.
As it is in an equated monthly installment which is built on the net present value of a loan, the amortization or the repayment of the loan is very slow in the initial years.
Okay, let me put to Samir Nair once. Samir, don't you think that